Hi everyone, it's Sam, NFTstatistics with your proof daily NFT countdown. We're going to talk a bit about this crazy Gitcoin situation, the new wallet from Coinbase and the wallet as a service, couple big sales. Let's get right to it. Starting with a quick market overview, volumes up a touch versus yesterday. Now again, I like to look at unique buyers. You can see we're still kind of in the middle of the range where we've been basically for most of 2023. Now in turn, we all know that ETH volume market share is still very much in Blur's camp. If you actually look at unique buyer market share, that's still in OpenSea's camp. Still something like 65% of the wallets that are being used every day are being used on OpenSea. So kind of an interesting trend there. Floor price index down a little bit, not too much movement from the big components other than Gutter Cats, which was down a fair bit. Mid-cap index also down a touch. Now, this is kind of a crazy chart. The vast majority of projects down, but just a huge move up in On-Chain Monkey. Let's just take another look there. You can see going up above 3 ETH basically for the first time ever. So, always fun to see a new project kind of excelling in the bull market. They've talked about ordinals. There's just a ton of momentum there. So nice to see that from On-Chain Monkey. Another project that had some news was Sappy Seals. They tweeted that they don't like roadmaps, but they were going to drop this instead. And what they dropped was this picture, which they called the grand plan. There was a whole lot going on in there. Check out their Twitter to see what you think, what's interesting. Picture of an airdrop, other stuff like that. The market didn't really make too big of a move. If you look at the floor price chart for Sappy Seals, basically kind of flat. I think the market generally doesn't get too excited about announcements of roadmaps, announcements of what's to come. That's just the type of thing that the market hasn't responded too much in either direction to either way. Still interesting to see that. I put this chart in here. I said the farmers are getting the punks. We've talked about this extensively before, but yesterday we had, something like 50 CryptoPunk trades. What this looks at total trades, and what the red line shows is that we basically have had the most CryptoPunks trades over the past 4 days that we've had really any 4-day stretch in over 9 months. So interesting to see that. I don't think it really matters. Floor price hasn't really made a big move. It's just a bunch of recycled NFTs, but still figured I'd point that out. In terms of our projects, the project with the most volume was Chromie Squiggles, over 100 ETH of volume, 9 trades there. Also a bit of volume in Fontana by Harvey Rayner Pattern.co, more than 15 ETH and 3 trades there. And then brain drops continue to be in focus. A whole lot of volume on a few of the projects that didn't pump quite as much yesterday, but still just a ton of action in brain drops. Second story to talk about, Gitcoin Presents. What is Gitcoin Presents? I mean, it's still pretty hard for me to understand. There's a fair bit of stuff going on. This is what the NFTs look like, at least the main NFTs. But the thing to focus on is the lower left. And what you see there is Vitalik's name, along with a bunch of other big hitters, both in Web3, as well as just overall success stories. But Vitalik being associated with this project really kind of made it a big attraction. As far as the facts about it, it was a 0.05 open edition mint that closed yesterday. It had been minting for a while. 9,221 ultimately minted. They raised about $700,000, but the floor price now is 0.48, so up about 10x from mint price. The top sale 52 ETH. We'll talk a little bit more about both of those. Got as high as 0.7 ETH. So really kind of once that open edition closed, this project just went completely crazy. You can see here, first trades were around 0.1 ETH. It got as high as 0.75, 0.8 ETH in terms of where the median trades were happening. Then it dumped and has basically rallied gradually ever since then. Now, one of the interesting things is that around when it dumped was when Machi Big Brother, who we know has made tons of big purchases through airdrop farming, he got stuffed with a lot of these NFTs, something like 600 of them. And that was why I think people got nervous then that he would dump. And then the floor basically went from 0.6 all the way down to 0.2. And then it started to rally back. Interesting thing about Machi is he actually never ended up selling. He's just gradually bought more and more, owns something like 1,500 of them right now. So 15 to 20% of the supply is currently held by Machi Big Brother in this project. Where was the volume? Most of it was on Blur straight from the start. This is basically hour by hour. And you can see that basically, something like 60 to 70% every hour of the volume was on Blur. And I think that what we're seeing here is that when projects get hot, when these new things get hot, the Blur airdrop farming and the bidding on Blur can really increase the volatility in both directions. This is the one of 12 that sold for 52 ETH. There's kind of a limited edition. You can see signed by Vitalik there, as well as the other people who are the founders of this project. A little bit more about this project. It's being distributed by a company called MetaLabel, which gets 10% of the proceeds. Meta Label wants to do a bunch of quality drops, which they basically call records, where they bring together different collaborators to put content and NFTs together, similar to how artists sometimes come together to create content. They're trying to do that, I believe, with NFTs. Again, this is largely new to me, but giving a bit of what I understand. With this one of the goals was mainly around a concept called quadratic funding, which is the idea that people who can donate a lot of money can have the proceeds of that partially determined by them, but also determined by people who also donate money, but donate less. It's a way of collaborating, pooling together fundraising so that not just the person with all the money is deciding where that money goes. Sometimes that can lead to better allocation of capital according to this principle. It's something that Vitalik has talked about in the past. There are a bunch of different pieces of the drop. The main one is this thing called the record packaging. Now, this is a thread, and I would encourage anyone who's interested in this to go to Birdman Harvey's Twitter, because he wrote a real in-depth Twitter thread about this project, and he did it before the mint actually closed. So back when it was at 0.05 ETH, one of the things you can do with this NFT is inscribe your own comments, which will live forever on the NFT. Here's an example of him doing it. So that's kind of a cool aspect of this NFT. Again, here's his Twitter. I'd recommend giving him a follow. Overall, this will be an interesting one to track. Like, I think the fact that you have Vitalik there gives it this interesting provenance, but he's not out there pumping anything. Doesn't feel like a huge utility project. It was always intended to be something of a fundraiser and attention and bringing attention to quadratic funding. So I don't know. I'm curious to see how this will play out over time. Clearly, right now, it's just the momentum movement that's trading it all around, but will be an interesting one to track. Third story to talk about, Coinbase launches wallet as a service. Again, it's something I had to learn a lot about today as I do this show, always learning so I can bring you what I can learn as quickly as I can in the morning. But yesterday, Coinbase announced that they were introducing wallet as a service, making it easier for companies and brands to seamlessly onboard users to Web3, even people who have never used cryptocurrency before. This is an important topic to me because I've had two friends who bought NFTs for the first time. One, a very expensive one, both of whom somehow signed away their NFTs within a week. So I've just seen all the risks around security of NFTs. So anything that can happen to make NFTs safer for newcomers, I think is something that's incredibly important. I love this fact that they're highlighting even for people who've never used crypto before. A couple facts about it is it is a wallet infrastructure API that can create, access, and restore wallets with a username and password. So what they're really trying to do is make it so that you do not need a seed phrase. You can just use username and password. And then they use something called MPC, multi-party computation, which is where they get the security, and that divides, encrypts, and distributes keys among multiple different parties. A couple of the early users that are using it are Floor, Moonray Game, Token Proof, Third Web, a bunch. I looked at some of the people who put this together and looked at their Twitter as well as other fans, who talked about MPC. One of the things that they do focus on is that it is a non-custody solution. Your keys, your crypto. This guy, Victor Bunin, says users have full control over their assets, including an option to export their keys off the platform at any time if they want. So I think overall, seems like an interesting solution. People who know more about this seem to be pretty excited about it. Curious to see how that plays out. Again, I think that security is our biggest obstacle as an industry. So anything that can make it easier for non-experts to really use this tech, I think is a great thing. Lastly, notable sales to talk about. The first one is this piece, Blue Night by Donglu for 13.5 ETH. This was a secondary sale. Donglu talks about how she really loves metropolises and she also loves the ocean. And you get both of them here. You get this beautiful metropolis along with kind of the whales in the imagery. Again, a secondary sale about double the price that it was originally bought for. Here, Donglu is saying thank you to the previous holder, as well as thank you to the new buyer, NFT Me. Now, in terms of this artist, her description, she's a senior concept artist in the entertainment industry for 14 plus years, has worked on all sorts of video games, as well as The Lion King. So really accomplished artist here. Also very accomplished in Web3, has had sales of 15 ETH, 18 ETH, another 15 ETH, 20 ETH. So this sort of 13.5, still an incredible sale. She has had higher sales before in the past. Cool thing, if you like her work, if you want to spend some money on some Donglu work, she has a Sotheby's auction coming up. This piece is really cool. Koi and Starry Night going to be auctioned March 10th to March 15th on Sotheby's, NFT Asia. So it will be interesting to track how that one does. Two more quick sales to talk about. Now, one of the interesting things right now is the high value ETH sales have kind of gone down a little bit. The double digit sales, the triple digits, not seeing quite as many of those. Gives me a chance to talk about some really fun artists that had sales a little bit at lower prices, but I think this one's really cool. 4.8 ETH for this piece called When Red Called Me by Redrum. Now, there's the bio for this artist says, between dream and nightmare, you kind of get this feel, you know, all this very pervasive red throughout the art. Here are 4 of the top sales the artist has had. You can see 3.3 ETH, 3 ETH, 3 ETH, 2 ETH. All have a bit of that spooky feel, but pretty fun work. Also, a lot of additions. This one called A Red Story, if you do like the work but want to get in at a lower price point. And last sale to talk about, this one by EVBuilds, sold for 2.1 ETH to Vincent Van Dough. EVBuilds is a name that comes up in my feed a lot. I feel like both the artists as well as the people who support the artists are really vocal about the artists. Interesting to see VVD with this purchase. In the bio for EVBuilds, it says, GM, my name is EVEv, and I spend my days building join.xyz and collecting digital art I like. At night, I create conceptual art using code, AI, and Excel. And you can see that, you know, this art is basically done on Excel. So pretty interesting with the pixelated kind of nature scenes. I think it's pretty cool. These are 2 other sales, one for 2.22 ETH, one for 1.5 ETH. So today's sale at 2.15 wasn't the all-time high, but still super noteworthy, super interesting, pretty interesting concept going on here that really stood out to me. That's all for today. I hope you liked the show. Give us a follow at Proof Podcast on Twitter, and like the video if you liked it. Subscribe to the channel, comment, tell us what we can do better, and we'll be back tomorrow and every weekday with another show. Thanks a lot.